Hello. Okay, we have some music still. Hello and good evening. I hope everyone can hear me. This is Mark van Tongeren with another third book launch event. I'm just gonna check first, is my sound okay? Does everybody hear me? Before I say more. Audio and voice, okay, right. Well, I'm very excited to welcome you all here. Thanks for coming, watching and listening. It's been the third time we have an event to launch this book, Overtone Singing, about this miraculous overtone singing technique that is not known still to too many people. And there's an anthology also. And that is the reason why we are here. And we have taken this opportunity to invite several guests to talk about this fascinating kind of music. And today I'm really happy to be joined here with a guest from the Netherlands, born in Russia, and who has been to Tuva many, many times. So this is a presentation particularly for people in the European time zone, so I hope you can find your way. If you have any question, you might type it in the comments section. We have an assistant here, Jane, who takes care also of coordinating things in the backstage. So let us know if there's something, and if I think of it, I will every once in a while check how things are going and if there are questions. But as she already wrote, at the end we'll have a Q&A session. We're not sure when that's going to be. This could take 1 hour, it could take longer. We have some really, really nice music prepared by Maxim Shaposhnikov, our guest, and both audio and video. So let's ask Maxim to join us from Amsterdam, and then I will tell a little bit more about what he did and what makes him so important to interview and to chat. Hi, Maxim.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Mark. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
We are in different parts of the world, but it's great. This modern technology lets us connect this way.
Right. Hey, we see here Tuva file, and that was actually indeed the next song. So before we go there, no. Let's start with it. Let's do things in the proper order. You just put out an album last year with recordings from the very, very beginning of your journeys to Tuva, which is before most of us ever traveled there. So let's listen to what you recorded in, I think it's 1991, right?
Right. All of this is 1991.
91. So let's travel back more than 30 years to Chovu Kozegar Kargira by Gunastarol Orzak.
That's it.
Going on.
Let's lift up a little bit the volume, maybe.
All right. That was the amazing Gunastarol Orzak.
The legendary, yes.
The legend. And you saw him, you heard him, and you recorded him. So I thought to start this journey before I came in, because I met you a little bit later. We'll talk about that. I met you because you were bringing back these recordings to the Netherlands. You came to the Dutch radio, the national radio, and I happened to be able to come there as a guest, and that's where we first met, and you were presenting these recordings. Now let's start with, how did you end up going to Tuva? You were born in the Urals, which is the bridge between Europe and Asia. It sounds maybe a little bit close for some people, but it is still far away from Tuva. So
yes, very far.
Yeah, how did you get there, and what brought you there?
No, actually, it was a question of mine to you. How did you get there first? But yes. I will answer about myself first. Yes, actually, it's a kind of long story. You can say at least time-wise. I've heard Tuvan music by chance when I studied at school, and we did some kind of we played around with music collages. When and my older brother was like 3 years older, he was already involved in some kind of experimental music band in our hometown, and I was involved there as well. So we borrowed records from local library, And by chance, there was this record of Tuvan music, and none of us knew where Tuva is, and none of us had any idea where this music comes from.
Mm.
While it was a Russian record, all written in Russian, but there were all these strange names. Huh? And then we did not even care at the time. There was no Google or Wikipedia. Yeah, so we did not care to go and try to find it on the atlas or something. We liked that it was so strange, and we used this actually Honashtarol's record, the old
Yeah. Yes.
original recordings of Melodia label, and we used them in these collages. So this was the very first touch on the Tuvan music, and why we chose that, of course, because it was totally otherworldly, and we were obsessed with aliens at that time, and we did even rituals in our hometown, which was situated in the middle of forests and Urals on the lake. So we had this big stone, like you see in the fairy tales, the big stone. We crawled on it, and we called to the aliens. Aliens come with us, come to us, visit us, and we make friends with you. So
Right.
we were obsessed with aliens, and this was very alien what we heard. So we use this music in our collages, and still exists actually somewhere on the net. You can find it. But this
Yeah.
was the first time I heard Tuvan music, and then in stages it came back to me again and again. So some people introduced me in the later time, a few years later. I listened to these records again, and by the time I was living in Holland already, it was from 1988. When I first time came back again to Moscow and visited friends, and I heard these recordings again at some hippie friend apartment, and it just was a lightning strike. I thought, this is the music I want to know everything about, and this is the place I want to go right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Well,
was
let's go back for a moment because maybe not everybody knows what we're talking about. What we just heard was throat singing. Could you explain just briefly what it is for you? What is this kind of extraterrestrial alien
okay. Of
music?
course, now I look at it from a different perspective because
Yeah.
I know the background, I know the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I touched on this culture.
So what did
Uh,
you hear at that time then, when you
this
had
was
only the record?
first reaction was that it was not a human voice,
Yeah.
that it was somehow some strange effect which is maybe done by human, but not with a voice. Maybe there is some instrument involved in this. This was the
And
first.
these are the Melodia records. Melodia was the national label, it still is, of Russia, where most of the music was put out at Melodia. And I do remember also hearing some of these recordings, and they had a habit of adding a little bit of delay or echo even on some of these tracks. Was it also one of those?
Yes,
So that
but
made it sound a little bit
there
bigger than
was
it
a
is and
time
a little bit.
again looking from today's perspective. I would say this echo was very natural because it was used with natural reverberations. Was not like now the digitized reverberations. I would not. I wouldn't be surprised if they even use this plate, the metal plate or something for delay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, it sounds pretty natural, and this was really a common practice in Soviet Union at that time to release these kind of recordings because they were made actually in the studio. So to warm them up, to soften them up, to make a more friendly acoustic, uh, they had some echo, but and the reverberation, but it was very limited, organic.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're soon going to go to some other things that you issued, but this was actually not issued at that time. You played it on the radio, and this was a kind of a new thing, of course. This music was so new for people outside Russia, and those records were always put out by Melodia. And you were already an artist. You created events there, rituals, immediately using that music to do something, some
Yes,
artistic event. So that
yes.
is your That was already from the very
And
start.
we even
Your,
tried to practice it
of
in the way
course,
that
yeah,
it was possible, just like you.
yeah. Well, I know.
We did things together, if you
I
remember.
recognize that. Yes. Well, let's listen to one other track. I selected these from your Tuva Files album, which is on Bandcamp, and this one is a rather obscure technique of throat singing because Gunnar Starol Orzak, he is so legendary because he didn't just sing one of the basic techniques of throat singing, like you have Geurme, Sigit, Kargira, which many people do. And then there are some familiar substyles like Ezingilir and Borbanadir. But what I want to play now is Dunchuk Siredi. So it is Sigit singing through the nose. And that is just some of the many different techniques that he developed. So he splashed out a whole universe of throat singing styles. Some of that is on record, and you added your own recordings from 1991. So let's listen to this next track of him. All right. So he's singing there through the nose. For those who are listening at home, we have headphones. Maybe you don't. You can leave a comment if you have problems with audio.
It's
This
a
may
little
be
bit
a bit
soft, I
soft
think,
because
a bit soft.
this is actually kind of done as background music. But okay, it's music for concentrated listening.
So yeah, let me comment this one a little bit.
Yes.
Because like meeting, I should explain a little bit more about the meeting with the legend, because
Yeah.
as you understood, I already knew the classic recordings of Alash River, which is Honashtarol's famous recorded piece. It's his composition and
Yeah.
his recorded piece, which took a lot of prizes in that time, yeah, in the recording industry, international prizes, and it was also represented in Samarkand. At a famous festival, Registan Festival, and it was placed there as one of the most important Asian pieces from that time. It was like early 70s, let's say mid 70s. So Cholesterol, being a herder, simple man, suddenly got a lot of attention, and he was brought to Moscow, and probably made some international travels as well,
He
like
did, yes.
to Central Asia and
To Baghdad, I think, also.
Baghdad, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can imagine, yeah, for a simple man from Tuva, it was a very special event to get this suddenly get this attention, which he probably did not even get in Russia, in Soviet Union itself, because it was a very marginal form of art, and mostly only the ethnomusicologists were interested in that. So, and this, he was the first, let's say, the first bird before all many other next generation musicians started to touch with international fame. So this is an interesting phenomenon. And again, he created a classic repertoire and a classic approach, which is still incomparable.
Yeah.
Indeed he mastered all these different styles. He invented styles.
He invented them partly,
yes.
probably,
yes.
Yeah, and his pieces and the styles even, yeah.
Which is this, for me, directly reflects the nature of Tuvan creativity.
Yeah.
They actually they invented their styles, and you cannot pinpoint Tuvan creativity into certain styles and put them on the shelves. The original creativity suggested that all the talented musicians who dared to show their art, they all had their own personal styles.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Now we can see. I mean, I'm going too much ahead, but just one note that now we can see that the younger generations are more looking at the standards and the masters, and the older generations, they did not have that ability.
They didn't
So
have
they
all
were
these
masters
recordings, of
themselves. Yep,
course. Yeah, and
exactly.
they kind of set the standards, just like the Beatles set the standards for Western pop
Exactly.
music in a way.
Exactly.
So let's go to one other master from that time, a much younger man. By the way, Gunnar Starol, he passed away shortly after you met him in 1992, and before I came there for the first time in 1993. And I really regretted, of course, that I've never seen him live, but yeah, you did. So,
I did. I
and
shook his hands, and you can imagine my excitement when I realized who is this man standing before me. You
yeah,
know, because
right.
I did not
Yeah,
know when I met him. I did not know straight away that it was him. And then,
okay.
in a few minutes only after we talked, I realized that this is the person
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
adore already for
yeah.
years.
Now there was another singer who was quite young at that time, German Kular, and we're gonna listen
Yes,
to a piece of him,
yes.
also recorded by Maxim in 1991 during the first International Throat Singing Festival. Not in the festival itself, but on the site of the festival, recorded there.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going
No, just
to slow down. We will have more with better sound quality, also more video material from you later on. So you were there, actually not living in Russia anymore, already living in Holland, and bringing then these recordings to Holland. And with that, you were at kind of in the right moment, in the right place, I would say. I'm going to show people some things that I
wow, you
bought
have
from you
that.
early on.
I
This
don't
we
even have this.
You don't even have this. Well, look,
No.
this is a collector's item. It's a bit okay. I hope you can see. This is a cassette, people. Yeah, yeah. Well, they're still around sometimes. A cassette of the Geumee Festival, but it's 1992. That was a year later. Huh? I think there was another one.
Yes.
And then you also met musicians in Tuva, and you published this fantastic album, Euzum.
Yes.
No one can read it, maybe, but these are two unique Tuvan characters, and U, and then Z, Euzum.
Euzum.
Only the record cover, even it's very fascinating. And you were publishing this record in Moscow and publishing it in Holland with Windows to Europe, which is your foundation, which you founded already at that time. It is among the first records that came out of Tuva music. And to give a bit of context, there was this album, which many people know. It's Tuva Voices from the Center of Asia, but many people know it now. That was put out in 1990 by Smithsonian Folkways. A huge, of course, and very important record
Very
label.
influential
Very
album.
influential. That album that was kind of groundbreaking because it was
Yes.
the first one that came out in the West. Followed by yours and by this one, which was also published in Holland by Bernard Kleinkamp.
Yes.
Voices from the Center of
Yes.
Tuva. For some reason, I was there meeting you and also meeting Bernard Kleinkamp and two people who were inviting musicians also and publishing this music. So I was really struck when we met the first time. You were, I still vividly remember it. You, you looked
I
like a
remember
hip,
you too.
you looked like a hippie with, maybe you had plateau shoes. I'm not sure. White pants, very colorful, and actually, Maxime, you looked a little bit like you stepped from out of outer space yourself.
Oh,
And we
nice,
were at the radio,
nice
which was
memory.
very exciting for me. And so, yeah, what happened? How come you found these guys, put out this album, living in Holland? Uh,
Look, it's all metaphysical. It's all destiny. Because when I decided to go to Tuva and study this music, things just fell into place. Everything was working for that. So this album that you showed, the Ted Levin album,
yeah.
I was not aware of that. You know, we did not have
Mm,
internet.
no.
So when I was going to Tuva in 1991 summer, I
Yeah.
passed Berlin, and in Berlin I bought this album because
Yeah.
I just saw it in the shop,
Yeah.
and I bought before my travel to Tuva. I bought this album, so I had it just before, and this was also a coincidence, so called. And so when I tell you how I got to know these guys, when I was in Moscow with like totally obsessed with this idea to go to Tuva as soon as possible. It was winter 80. It was winter between 90 and 91. I asked just one of my closest friends, "Do you know anybody or anybody who anything who has relation to the Tuva, to who knows something, who knows somebody,
Yeah.
who knows how to
It
get
was
it?"
so far away, and
Yeah,
yeah.
it was for that standards for standards of that time. It was end of the world.
Yeah. End of the
Uh,
world.
it was
Yeah.
also no information about it, and as you know, all the border areas of the Soviet Union were all kind of in secrecy, yeah, in
No
gray
go
gray
area.
area,
And
no go
Tuva is a
areas.
border area,
Yes,
borders with Mongolia. This is maybe good to say to some people. Tuvans look like Mongols, but these are two different countries,
yeah,
and they're really different people, different language. And Tuva is at the border with Mongolia, so it was indeed
yeah.
difficult or maybe impossible to travel there.
So and then it was this guy with whom I actually studied at school in the same class, and he said, "Oh, I was at the university with a woman from Kizil.
From
She's my
Tuva. Yeah.
from Tuva. She's from she was a student, and she's in St. Petersburg. Call her." He gave me her number. There was no internet again, so I call her, and she said, "Yeah, I am here in St. Petersburg, and my nephew from Kizil, young guy, is studying at the theater university, theater institute in St. Petersburg. So if you want to meet us and talk, please come." So I put my bag. I took my bag, and then in a few days, I was in Moscow at that moment. In a few days, I was in St. Petersburg, and I've met them. And I met this lady. Her name was Delano or something. I'm not sure now. But I was introduced to her nephew, and who was that? It was Otkun Dostai,
At Kundastai. Yeah.
and I
Very great throat singer from
yeah,
Tuva. Very young at
and
that time.
throat singer, but also somebody who promotes music, travels abroad,
Actor at that time.
acting, producing, and unfortunately for a few years he has a disease. He is not
Yeah.
very active,
Yeah.
but he was one of the more active persons in the promoting to the music in the
And
last
he put
century.
together the band Zoom, I guess, right? He was probably
Yes,
leading that, and with
yes,
two other actors, and
yes,
he just probably directed the whole thing and said, "Let's do it
exact.
this way."
Yeah,
Or did you direct it? Did you say,
we
"Guys,
did
can
it
you do this
together.
and that"?
We
You
did
did
it
it
together.
together.
So we met. He called them up. I have all these memorable pictures. I'm sorry I did not collect them now, but next time.
Next time.
And we met in this hostel, student hostel, very basic, Soviet student hostel in 1990. It's very basic. And but we had really great time. They sang music. They introduced me to the whole group. Actually, there were like maybe 20 or 25 people from Tuva studying there.
Oh,
And
so many. Yeah, a whole
yeah, it was a
community.
big
Yeah.
big community. And I mean, this was the typical Soviet thing that once in 2 years a group from the native areas could come and study in the big
And then they
in
flew
the
in a whole
center.
bunch from this
Yes,
republic or
yes,
that
yes,
republic, and
yes,
they
yes. It
got to
was
know.
such a
They knew each other, and
yep.
they had a
It was a program
kind of
like that,
collective.
socialistic program to create new forces for theater and culture.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was lucky that exactly at that moment, in exactly at the same hostel, there was this wonderful researcher Valentina Suzuki. Yes, we
Yeah.
have here a list,
Yeah.
and she was working on her PhD, I suppose, at that moment, and I've met her. So I met very important people at once, and we made some. This was a leaflet for the first Ozum tour in Europe, yeah, Belgium, Netherlands, where I think it was Belgium, Netherlands only.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the musicians.
We have here Otkundostai, Olakondar, and Stanislav Iril.
Stanislav Iril, yeah,
Yes.
in the background. I mean, I have to say, Maxime, the design you did, it was really also quite interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And well, the music also, the way this album stands out from the other ones is that Atkundostai, who's also an actor, he did a whole part speaking and narrating a story or a legend. It's very beautiful. The three guys had very different styles. The tracks on the old the record from a few years earlier, those were mostly soloists. Here we had a group, but it was yet also very different from this group, which was kind of the beginning of a group, an official group from Tuva. So yeah, it's like you are a very independent person. You work on your own. You do all kinds of things. You're a DJ. You're an entrepreneur in music and in all kinds of events. So it was very fitting that you found such kind of independent musicians, and who could have done that? Only a Russian.
But this was a very it was a transformation point for the big country like Soviet Union. For me, as an individual leaving Soviet Union, going to the Europe unknown, for me it was totally unknown, and it took some time to learn about European culture, the ways in Europe, and also how can I exist there and earn my living. All these kinds of things came together. And I already by that time I was indeed involved in creative musical projects, and I had some subjects I was actually studying: the quality of sound, the experimentation with sound, finding new horizons. And
okay, let me take over for a while here, because this is where I got to know you. If you don't mind, I interrupt you.
Sure,
because
sure, please.
You were in Amsterdam, and you were organizing events there. And again, this was, for me, kind of stepping into a totally different world. You were organizing events in the red light district. Many people have heard about that, although it's kind of fading away now. But in some obscure cafe, and there were Russian people, Ukrainian people, different people from different areas of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Very international, but you were kind of putting this up together, and we, Amsterdam people, which is also an international bunch, we were going there, and these events, they were really very interesting. You sat there sometimes, you play this music, And sometimes you started talking philosophical things with some echo on your voice, some delay on your voice, and you would just take 20 minutes to talk
We
with
did this with
German Popov.
German Popov, who is actually adoring this Oriental echo. Okay,
Yeah, he's adoring, and he's also a fantastic musician, and the other
absolutely.
musicians too. And it was kind of stepping into a different world. And yeah, we were there having drinks, you know. But it was not your regular cafe. Amsterdam was an interesting place for going out, but this was something different. And so you were organizing already these kind of soirees with music and full moon nights also, I remember. And then let's go on to what you then did a few years later. After I got to know you, and just before I went to Tuva, you invited some old musicians to Amsterdam, and you organized concerts with them. And those were also kind of not people in an ensemble or something, but two individual people. Could you introduce them to us, and shall we then watch the video that you made in that time?
Okay, I will briefly return to Zoom because and why I selected and why we together worked out on a group like that.
Okay.
Because I saw at the time the whole presentation of the Soviet folklore, kind of pathetic and uninteresting, and also not individual enough. It was there was no face. It was vague. It was state ensemble this, state ensemble that, but
Yeah.
we did not see characters, real characters behind it. We did not see real people behind this. It was like like a PR, or no more than that. So the
Yeah.
idea of to create this Zoom was to show real people, to show their faces, to show their
Okay.
individuality,
Yeah.
and make a small ensemble, which we could also let travel. I mean, an
Yeah.
ensemble of 20 people is difficult,
Yeah.
and then in 1.5 hours of the program, everybody has enough room to express themselves,
Yeah.
to create something different, and even to experiment. So this was the idea. And then when I met the masters, all the masters like Hunashtarol,
Mm.
and I saw the in Tuva itself, yeah, during
Yes.
these festivals, and then I
Yeah.
saw the whole programs of these festivals. The tape you show is like a live recording of the highlights of that festival.
Yeah.
So I saw all these people, and I actually had already in mind that some of them would be possible to invite to,
Yeah.
to show them in Europe, because for Europe it was should be a revelation, a new, totally new way of listening to the music.
And people were very curious in world music that was
Yes,
coming
it
up
was the
at that
right time.
time.
Yes,
Music from
yes,
around the world, unknown
very
places.
open
Yeah.
public.
Yeah.
And then what I noticed during these festivals is that the most interesting people there are older people who sing, older guys, masters. And I talked to them. I made acquaintances. You know, I met Sundukai. Became friends with
Oh
him, and
yeah.
we traveled together a lot. Sundukai is also one of the masters who, unfortunately, I did not invite in the end. I mean, there are too many circumstances. And then I met Chul Dumo, and who was so charming. I could not just get off that man. I mean, I wanted to talk to him endlessly and to spend time with him. And
Yeah.
then Sayabur, who is a very solid academic man, was introduced to me by Valentina Suzuki. Here we see Chuldumo in his village. Yeah.
With Maxime on the left, Childemol on the right,
Yeah, and then
near his home.
this name of this lady I don't remember now, but she was playing Byzantia.
Yeah.
And then I decided that what I I have to do, I have to do something with these older masters before they go away, while they're still there, and while there is a still attention to this whole music, or it's only starting this attention, but still, now is the time to show old masters. The young people I did first, very young,
Yeah.
unknown, and
Yeah.
then I invited.
Students.
Next time I was inviting the famous, famous between the people, musicians, and then I thought they deserve this attention. They deserve now go out, show their art before while they're still alive. So we
Right.
arranged this together with Valentina and Chul Dumol and Saya. They came together, three of them, for a short but very intense tour. Again, was in Netherlands and Belgium.
Yeah. Let's. Shall we watch
Yes, please.
their performance together? Publius Saya
It
and
was in Amsterdam,
André
indeed, in
Chudumel.
one of these Amsterdam backyards
Yeah,
in the red light district. Yes.
in the red line. Let's go. Oh, sorry. Um,
Yes, there they are.
yeah. Yeah, but it is indeed so incredibly charming, and yeah, your heart melts when you hear and see that, and this is what happened to me, and I'm so grateful that you did that. You know, it was like I remember at the university I was studying musicology at that time, and I organized one concert at the university, and I also
Yes.
remember it blew people away there. They were like, what is this? Where does this come from? And it was totally unknown, and
People were
very
kind
very
of
subtle.
shocked and charmed by this music. Yep.
Yeah,
The first impact. I envy people who for the first time hear this, because when I heard this on the recording, Kunoshtarol's recording, and I was how old? I was 17, 16. It was a shock. Just like
yeah,
it can happen when you're young.
yeah, yeah. That melody, by the way, is a very famous melody, and I think we have some people here listening now who probably know that melody, Artisai. It's a classic. It's a
Everybody
classic
sings
song.
that. Everybody sings that.
Everybody sings it. It's kind of almost like an anthem, but the way they do it is really different. And I remember what really struck me. You could now hear André a little bit, André Chudumol a little bit in the background singing Karagira.
Yeah,
The
because of
next
one
track
mic.
you can, the next track you can hear more clearly.
Yep.
But when I went to Tuva sometime later and I recorded him, he played this melody and he sang his throat singing like a quarter or a fourth higher, which was, and that's a recording that's in the anthology of my book. So you can hear another very interesting version there, and that struck me also like lightning. Like how could you do that? This parallel
This
this
is a
melody.
also just also a short comment because he is a storyteller. The Chuldomov basically is
Yeah.
a storyteller. He's not a musician. He's not a singer. This is what the people in the end call him, or a musicologist call him, a musician and a singer, and he is. But basically, what he does is storytelling,
Okay.
and he was would he has a whole body of fairy tales recorded, yeah,
Yeah.
with. I also show there is an interesting release by Intuva itself, which was for the his 19th anniversary of Chuldomol exactly.
This one. We did our homework.
And this is a nice CD. Recordings are not such
Yeah.
a great quality, but
No.
information is very interesting.
Yeah.
And the storytelling is actually, to my view, is the basis of this kind of traditional music, and also of home and overtone singing. We know it with high and kai and other styles. That
Mm.
the language storytelling and this using of overtones, it kind of goes together
Okay.
for many different reasons. It's to my view. Yeah.
Okay. I would like
Let's see.
to listen to the other recording you made at the time. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, because then we hear him even better. It's he's singing a lullaby in Karagiradis deep style. He's making it up, and someone had a doll and gave him a doll in his hand to kind
It's
of make
it's
it a real
it was
act.
a doll of my stepdaughter from then, because I had a girlfriend with a daughter, and it's her doll.
Her doll. Okay, let's have a listen.
Ôi nắng nhẹ tiếng ngọt tơ ơi là saram ngara saram
Okay, I'm gonna fade it out here. We can still watch him. The listeners who pay close attention, you could hear him say Hollander or something. He was actually composing songs when he was in Holland, right? And
He had also
yeah,
Kozamektar about Amsterdam, and the Kozamek, the quatrains. He was
yeah,
singing. Also, he was singing walking on the street, and he was singing when he was at Schiphol flying back, and he was saying this
yes.
Amsterdam song.
And there is a question here, Maxime, from Sonny Ziwalacha, who wonders how does it go together? You think this throat singing, overtone singing, and storytelling?
Look, there is certain evidence why collected by ethnomusicologists, why actually they use these strange voices to, especially in Altai, the epos, Altai epos, when sometimes people cannot even recognize the words, and also Circassian style, some texts sometimes are not understandable, also for the local, not only for us but for the locals, and that's actually shows that the text, the understanding of the text, the conscious understanding of the text is only a part of this whole thing, because the energy, the message contains something else than the text, or the text is encoded, and there is a more in it than a literal content or literal story. So the voices that they use in Hakka's funeral rituals, for example, they should sound otherworldly, and they should maybe even sound mumbling and bumbling, so that people the mind makes effort to understand it. So at some moment the mind gets tired of this, and then it opens up other senses. And basically epic singing is not only transmitting direct information or contents, it's transmitting to the senses. It has more layers of content than only text. So, for example, printed text of the epic singing, be it Kazakh or whatever, or Hakkas, it contains only 10% of really what is in the epos, and the performance of the epos is the final thing, the live performance of the epos for a certain situation, location, here and now. That's why the Manas by Kyrgyz, for example, the Manas epos is still so much alive. They supported it, and it gets performed not only by big artists, famous, but also locally. There is always in the community somebody who is busy with relaying Manas. How good or bad, it doesn't matter. It matters that it brings a certain message through to the people, and people like it.
Yeah,
I've seen the performance of just a second performance of Manas in open air in Kyrgyzstan for a few hundreds of people, like a kind of competition, and all these hundreds of people were totally silent, absolutely full of attention, listening to this, and this was amazing to see.
I mean, that was like what we now go to the movies, but at that time it was storytellers, epic singers, reciters who took people to this other world, and who were just as thrilled as we are now by Hollywood. We just need all this kind of sensual stimuli now, but at that time it was the story and the symbols and the images and the heroic deeds, and that got people entranced. And it's interesting that that's still happening, that you saw that happening even nowadays.
Yes.
Can I take you to another moment? Because this is the epic thing, which is really a very important connection to throat singing and overtone singing, and has to do with telling stories. But a few months after this concert, I was also in Tuva. And again, thank you so much. You put me in touch with Valentina Suzuki.
You were the right person. You were the right person.
I wrote a letter to her, and she helped me to get an invitation from Tuva. And then, it was fortunate that we met before. The year before, I did not dare to go to Tuva. I thought, like, I'm in Moscow. I thought, like, I would like to go to Tuva. I want to meet that woman. I already knew her content, but I didn't dare just to go there. It seemed to be so far away, and my Russian was still very poor. But that time I was ready. And then you showed up suddenly on my doorstep when I was staying in Tuva. It was such a big surprise. And then a little bit later, we went to the hometown of Chuldumol. And there we had a very interesting meeting with him that is maybe linked to another aspect of throat singing, to shamanism and animism.
This we was walked out of epic meeting.
It was epic, but without the epic story. So can you take us to that moment when we were spending time with him in his village? And I'll show some photos again of this.
Yes. Yes. Look, what they call now, they have now in science, ethnographic science, or some anthropological sciences, all kinds of allowed words like sacred landscape, for example, a description of a natural place which has a special importance and is venerated by the people, and people come there and communicate with the spirits, and sometimes it's very individualized, private places. Sometimes it's for common people. So Chuldumol took us, without saying too much, us to his personal, private, sacred landscape, his tree and his river. This was a big gift from him for us, because he actually was a shaman as well, storyteller, Tolchi. Is the next one to a shaman. basically it's the just another shamanistic function. I mean, shamanism is not limited to one priest who is doing things for the community. Shamanism is a syncretic institute which involves everybody in the community.
There are many shamans who don't beat drums and wear these suits, but who do it in a much more
they
different
have maybe
scale.
some limited functions, but they are specialized in a certain shamanistic function, let's say. So we went indeed after recordings and having some food and walking around the village.
At his home, you see his home, a very modest
poor
home, we could say.
Very poor, and Childumol died very poor, and also under incredibly bad circumstances. We will not go into it, and for which we will not look somebody to blame, though the government and the cultural authorities of Tuva could do much more for the treasures of their own culture.
Yeah,
but it was such a time.
Yeah,
let's say, and yes, it was. This was his.
So
house.
he took us out of that. Where did we go to? Was it a sacred tree for him?
Yes, yes. He did not talk much about this directly, but the way he brought us there and what we did there it's a proof of that. It was his personal sacred place, and we recorded him. Remember, this recording I still have to find. I have it, but somehow somehow it just doesn't want to show up, yet.
Okay, it will come.
And so we recorded him at this little river. He sang to a river, the deep Kargara.
And playing igil, this instrument, a little bit like what you see here. The
his very special igil, very Childumol igil, his personal igil, and all the tuning, his strange tuning, and after that we got overwhelmed by the sun, by nature sounds, and by all what was happening, and we all somehow became so relaxed, we kind of fell asleep, all three of us, and we slept under this tree.
Yeah,
there he is.
Right, with his igil. Yeah.
And like many things in Tuva, if you are attentive and open to your surroundings, you can experience this marginal states of mind, something that you are not usually happenings to you. So this was one of those moments.
Yeah.
So I think this was a moment when Childumol gave us a gift, showing
absolutely
his personal place, and we accepted this, and it was a kind of harmonious happening, and which also brought us, Mark, somehow together as friends even more.
It's the ending of the book, as you just noticed. I finished the book. I started the book with hearing a Tuvan shepherd singing on the grasslands, far away. But I picked up that sound, and I finished my book with this moment when he took us there and played for us. Because for me, this was kind of this classical idea of the musician making music with nature, for nature, with nature, inspired by nature. It's kind of really unifying a human being and nature becoming something bigger than the two. And that is a very unique thing to hear and to observe. So we were.
It's very important that people who like. This is a bit of a different message, but now came to my mind that if you study music, if you want to know more about this, like now many people learn home through YouTube, watching videos, watching all these instructive videos from. Mostly not from Tuvans, because Tuvans don't speak all of them English, and then it's like intermediate persons who explain techniques and stuff. So I would just suggest to the people who really want to learn something that the technical part of it is only a small part. to learn about this particular culture, which is seated deeply in nature. You have to go there. You
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
look for this kind of experiences as we had with you, Mark. There,
Yeah.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
then it will start to grow from within and not from outside. This is just my from my experience, and I think nowadays studying something, you not only need to know theory, but you have to dare to do practice, even if you are not musical, if you not this, not that, but it's a communication thing,
Right.
and you have to learn that before you start techniques.
Right. Internat. A group. We move on to Kizil, the capital of Tuva, where I heard, got to know all these musicians. The best concert, one of the best concerts I ever heard in my life, was a rehearsal of Internat. A group.
Were we there together or not? Because I've seen the rehearsal of Internat too. Maybe we were there together, maybe not. I don't know.
No, I don't think so. No, I think it was before or after. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
I met them many times there, but 1 or 2 times they were performing, rehearsing. I asked them, "Can I record you?" He said, "No. This is just we're just rehearsing." And I still how much I would love to hear that back. But I did get a chance to meet the guitarist Alexander Chavunchak, who you see here. Another guitarist is Igor Toulouche, who became a very active musician and organizer of the kind of famous Ustugere festival. All these musicians were fantastic people. And Alexander Chavunchak, he just showed here in the recording I made at that time how he used his guitar to imitate different instruments. The charagan, which is a kind of zither. The igil that we just heard playing. The juice harp, and that is the recording I just show. He is imitating a juice harp with his guitar, and I would like to move on to this other aspect of Tuvan musicianship, really purely musicianship. Technically speaking, they developed all these amazing throat singing techniques, but I was so fascinated also by someone like Alexander Chavunchak, all these musicians in this band who could seamlessly blend jazz, rock, classical singing, operatic singing, Tuvan folk music, blues. It was just all coming together in a superior, sublime unity. And I asked him, because he was kind of a little bit kind of the music theorist maybe of the group, and he had a lot to say about tonalities and scales, and he could demonstrate it all. It wasn't theory or something. It was practiced, and I regret that I thought like this guy should come to the West. I think he has come to Europe at some point, but I was never really an organizer myself, and he sadly passed away. Like so many brilliant musicians passed away too young. But I thought this is a nice connection to the bigger world of Tuvan musicianship, which is so easily incorporates all kinds of modern things, and that is still something we hear now. So from that, I would like to jump to recently, when you were in Tuva in 2021. And you recorded musicians there, also using guitar, very vigorous guitar playing, very interesting guitar playing. This is kind of the one of the modern things that's happening. How did you see that develop, or how do you look at this thing? Or shall we listen first to them, or can you?
Yeah, let's listen.
Let's listen. Okay, so this is Oduchu, huh? Is the
Oduchu.
Here we go. Well, you got captured that magical moment, Maxime.
Yes, yes.
Who
And
are
this
these
is
guys?
Oda Chu is a duet. They're working for a few years together, and they are. Uh, the Mingi Mongush is you've met him, I think.
Yeah.
He's a very, very talented, a very promising home singer, and somebody who's by nature like gifted.
Yeah.
And he's a relative of Kaigalo Hovalik, so it says a lot about his
Mm.
family background. And let me see. I'm sorry, I have this. I lost this file. The name of this other guy, Sergi. Uh, this is a little bit annoying that I cannot bring this back. His
Mm.
name, but Sergio. But anyway, the other guy is his friend, who is like a guitar enthusiast, and they're both actually guitar enthusiasts. They're influenced by this American style finger style guitar.
Mm.
Also from the recent years, there are many masters, mostly from the US there. So this is a combination of kind of new blues stuff and traditional Tuvan music. They're based in Kazil, and they told me that people talk about asphalt kargera as a style, general style to show what is happening actually in the city, and the only city in real city in two ways, Kazil. So it's a Kazil style, and very very enthusiastic, very popular, very active. They have this is from their own studio on the left side. They have a room isolated for recordings, and
Mm.
they give guitar lessons, music lessons. Absolutely passionate musicians, very friendly, very modern, very active. They release videos. They have YouTube channel, and I think they have already two albums, if I'm not mistaken, and one recently released.
Yeah.
And this is young promise of Tuva,
Yeah.
basically.
Right. Yeah. How do you explain this fluidity of incorporating all kinds of musical styles from around the world? I was surprised how much they knew about jazz and rock, and you too. When I met you, you introduced music to me. There was like, my God, where do you get that from? There seemed to be a very good network at that time in the Soviet time to distribute all kinds of famous and obscure music among people. But Tuvans are they maybe especially adapted to incorporating that, or is this normal? I don't think it's normal, is it?
Look, Tuvans, and also it concerns many, some of the native people in Siberia, for example, Central Asia, and they are very, very deeply talented and musical. If you go to a Tuvan party, most of the people sing, most
Yeah,
of them,
yeah,
women, men, children, they all sing.
yeah,
They all can sing and dance. They do a lot of things. Sports. They're
yeah,
very active and very smart in their own way. And there's attention to others' musics. Like you can take, for example, example of the Sayan Bapar of Hürtu.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was basically a professional before he started to be involved in Hürtu. He was a fusion jazz musician, very professional musician who played already seriously guitar music and keyboards.
yeah.
And they had before Hürtu, they had this kind of fusion project called Kungurtuk. If you
Yes.
remember, there
Yeah,
are
yeah,
some
yeah.
secret recordings of that,
I
and
have a
this is
cassette
yes,
of Kungurtuk bought on the market in Kizil
exactly.
in 1993.
So you see, this is
Mm.
keep it good,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then they have this very open-minded ears and ability to uh, not to copy but to reflect. Let's say like a bird which repeats sounds that they hear. The two ones have this kind of built in. They can repeat and they can give their own interpretation into it.
mm,
And I, I I think this is a general kind of positivity and motivation in life and creativity that they have, and their open look to their surroundings and nature that allows them to be so free and flexible in music. I've seen this a lot with different people. They do it their own way, which is great. Which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Right. Let's go on a little bit to another very famous singer from Tuva, who was, well, one step or one foot in Tuva and one step in the whole wide world. And you collaborated with her. I'm talking about Sainho Namchilak. Many of us here in Taiwan, we saw her just a few weeks ago. And guess what? I talked to you and you said, yes, I just saw her here in Holland. It's very typical Sainho Namchilak. She is moving around like lightning around the planet. And you had a chance to collaborate with her. So can you talk a little bit about your role as a musician in this collaboration? It's, if I'm not wrong, it's at least this album. I thought it was this one too, but this is with German.
I'm only on that one.
You're on this one?
On the Stepmother City.
Yeah, still a very nice album after all these years.
Yeah, secretly, I've heard it's the most sold album.
Yeah,
it is her albums.
Oh, look at that! It's very popular indeed. So let me just show it a bit more.
It's released by Ponderosa Music in Milano, in Italy.
So what did you do to make her best-selling album, Maxime?
Look, we have a relationship with Sainho for many years. From the late 80s already, and in different levels we communicated. And at some moment we get acquainted and learned about each other. She was amazed that I have all this knowledge.
I'm going to show some albums.
This
meanwhile.
is a great,
she is the most productive
album.
Tuvan musician of them all.
She's just to be clear, she studied as a jazz and free jazz musician. She worked the most avant-garde and bohemian musicians in Moscow, where she started.
Yeah,
she had all these exotic looks, and she had all these exotic techniques of singing. So she participated in these projects with trio and gallery performances. She's also a performance artist.
Yeah,
so in the time in the 90s, especially early 90s, there were a lot of interesting communications, clashes, cooperations between musicians, and we learned about each other. And she stayed at my house sometimes in Amsterdam. We did things together and we shared things. And then
I probably first heard her in Amsterdam, later in Tuva, and then here in Taiwan, several concerts, and then in Tokyo. And she's
like a butterfly flying around the world.
Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah.
And she is easy. And then she was working. We talked for quite a while of working together, because she knew I was a DJ. I was running a label. I was also producing music, sampled music, electronic music, sound works, and all this. You mentioned these full moon parties, resonance presentations, and she also visited sometime. And we decided together with German that we will work on the basis of the album, like rhythmical basis, arrangements of her songs.
Yeah. With the drum and bass kind of style thing.
With trendy stuff of the time, sampled beats, drum and bass, trip hop, and some sounds and dubs, and somehow we were all inspired. And then we were working in Milano in the studio, and we quickly laid bases for most of the songs, and somehow it all worked. And then we started to build them up, to arrange them, and there were interesting, very nice musicians invited to record for this album, and double bass and other instruments. So somehow it went all smooth and nicely. We finished this album quickly, and it was produced by the producer of former member of Mattia Bazar, a famous Italian band. And the plan was, of course, then to go on tour with this sound. We played. This was also the typical Sainho. How do you end up in the Sanremo venue, Aristona, which is the Sanremo world famous venue where Sanremo festival, pop festival, already since early 60s or late 50s, going on each year, and we played there. at this place. I mean, that's only possible with Seinho. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so, there was me, German, and Seinho. We were three of us. I was
Yeah.
using samples and even real turntables,
Yeah.
and this was like a nice inspired start. And then we did after the album was released, we did a few tours. We went also to strange places like Sao Paulo and all around Europe. Very interesting.
Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the United States, we played a few concerts in then still existing knitting factory, you know, New York,
Yeah.
underground, one of the best venues for underground music and free jazz, which
Yeah.
doesn't exist now, but at that time. And then funny how people reacted to our concert. You know, New York public is strange. And then we finished, and people, the hall was standing hall was full, and they were just looking at us, and there was very minor clapping, and they were just looking at us like that, and then they were slowly disappearing one by one. And then the promoter said to us it was very successful concert. So but there was hardly any reaction from the people.
Yeah.
Like New York.
You just told me another story about you as a musician working in a very different context, also about the audience response. And you said, you explained to me that this is, yeah, you learned certain things from being in tuba, a kind of subtle way of working with sound and music and maybe vibration and the mind, understanding of the mind.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Is it in Paris? In terms of the audience response or how
Yes,
we can
yes.
perceive this music and what you took away from tuba. Maybe that's my last
Yes.
question, and then we ask if anyone else has questions.
Okay, Mark. I had so many questions to you, and okay,
Next time.
next time, yeah, maybe we should do
Q&A.
another. Yeah, we should do another one.
Q&A.
Yes, what I mean, we are both. You know, you understand me. We are both practitioners. We are not purely academics. So what we learn, our method is to let it go through practice, trying things with different people, different locations. You know, we have these ideas. So things I learned in the first place from tuba music is to listen to the music. I was, from my childhood, I was busy with music. I was adoring first the Beatles and the Creedence Clearwater Revival and the rock music, then the disco and the new wave. I went through all this, you know, because in Soviet Union we wanted everything, because there was nothing.
Yeah,
And then,
that's funny for us. You should realize that we think, oh, you're deprived of all these things. Disco, new wave. Come on, it couldn't be in the Soviet Union, but it was there.
people's creativity, you know, people
was there.
find their ways, and there was
Find
a
their way.
black market,
Market.
which
Yes,
was bigger
yes,
than
yes.
official market.
Bigger than the official. Right. Okay. So that's good to know.
Yes, and then when I went to tuba, why was it attracting me? Because of this something. It was promising me something. So I went to tuba and learned actually to listen. It took time. I learned to listen to the nature there. I learned to listen to the voices. I learned to listen to the color of sound. I learned to listen to exotic melodies. To put those things together, I learned to listen, to pay attention to one certain thing, and to pay attention to all of things at once. So this was like a really always practice, and I let myself not limit with preconception how I want to study this, what I expect from this. I did not offer to not to offer to my conceptions to the people I've met.
Right.
I tried not to pull out the answers that I already know. I wanted the answer which I don't know. So
Okay.
in that sense, Tuvan music taught me to listen to all other kinds of music,
Okay.
to all sounds. And with that luggage, I started again to humbly produce what I can. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, it's
I'm
true.
not
You were
infinite.
humble with Seinho. Also, you were definitely not putting yourself up front there. And how is it now? Because now you work with Marinka, who is a
Yes,
pianist working in 432
composer.
tuning systems, and
Yes.
you had a concert in France, and that is partly really to that's not a normal musical concert, right? Not normal like
No,
classical
it's
pieces.
not a
It's a
standard
kind of trip
trip.
also.
It's a journey, yes.
It's a
So
journey.
before we worked with we had these ideas of creating music, like for example, it is in Indian raga, when a musician takes a certain formula and a set of rules, and then elaborate freely on this theme and the rules and what they call raga, the mode. And a good musician has freedom to flow around, and each performance of the same mode is unique for every musician, but also for different musicians. That's how music remains really alive. So
Okay.
we try to put this into composing practice and performing practice. And Marinka, she's already for many years doing this solo piano, but she does not write music. She doesn't put them in notes, and she has this skeleton, and then she plays over it each time quite a bit differently.
And what was
And
the result in
and
Paris?
when I bring my own thing together, I put some
Yeah.
special effects and I use percussions and sound gadgets. And like the experience you had really nice, because people you talk about in Paris, because people didn't know what they expect. They open the door, they enter, and they don't know what there was no zero preconception, and there was this dark room with special light and smoke and this
Mm.
music and sound, and people who came there were not specifically musical lovers, or was a really like strange public with the people who can pay for this kind of special thing. That's all. And
Kind
they
of
were
a
brought by
VIP. Yeah.
VIP, brought by some kind of some agency, so the people didn't really know what they will get.
Okay.
And one thing I can say, they were kind of skeptical about everything always, because they this kind of people. And then when they left it, what I hear, one of the women said to me, I experienced something that I did not experience for 20 years. Memories came to me. I'm all excited. I'm thrilling, because this is a very important emotions which I can relive again. Another person said, I'm a businessman. I know nothing about culture. I hardly ever go to the concerts. And I thought, you cannot surprise me, because I'm insensitive to this. But then after 5 minutes, I forgot where I am, he said. After 5 minutes listening, I totally could not think about myself, and I forgot where I am until the end. I kind of recovered from a dream. Thank you, guys. So this kind of
Wow.
reactions from unprepared people gives us
Beautiful.
interesting perspectives.
Let's go back to Tuva for a moment. And if there are any questions, please type them in here. We're listening to music music. It's not music. This is sounds from Tuva.
This is a wooden pole resonating the sound of electricity wires.
That's right. And that was in the village where we recorded under after walking back from that sacred tree, actually. Yeah.
Nice. This sounds good. I could listen to this for hours.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if anyone has a question, there's no question I see now. Yeah, thanks for the live stream. You're very welcome, Tristan. Guitar player. Yeah. Have you heard of the bowhead Will? Yeah. That's a connection with David Rothenberg, the publisher of this book, who did a lot of studies on whale music, bird music, insect music. Yes, I've heard those things, and that is still available on other streams where we talk with David Rothenberg. Actually, the first two were with him. This one we are totally in the opposite end of the world.
I would also maybe, well, there are no questions. I would do a bit of promotion, like this Bandcamp release of this Tuva Volume 1. Everybody is welcome, of course, to listen and to download.
Yeah,
And
that's that one.
this
Yeah.
is the very first, and there will be more volumes. I'm working on them, so it will be
Tuva
more than
Files,
enough
Volume
material.
2. We're looking out for that. Yes.
Sure. Then I'll show you for one of the examples what I did this album. Yeah, this is an EP
Yeah.
with Nohon Shomarov, who is an Altai singer,
Yeah.
and he was on tour for one of my tours of nomadic musicians, and we worked together with a streamer, a producer, electronic producer here in Amsterdam, and we created the song. It's available on vinyl if you ever find it. Hunting song.
Yeah.
And this was one of those endeavors to combine electronic beats and overtones, homemade throat singing, things like that.
All right. That's on your Kidnap Records
Yeah,
label.
it was released on Kidnap Records, and it's possible to buy it through Discogs. People who
Okay.
know.
So where can people follow you, Maxime? Orphologist is your YouTube channel, I think, and there is the concert that we saw with André Tjudemol in Amsterdam 30 years ago. Is there many other things, also Central Asia. You got a lot of interesting material there.
Most of it is my own, comes from my own projects. Most of the contents and concerts I organized, or some experimentations, and it's a working channel.
Okay,
going on.
Maxime, a question: what would you recommend me to focus on when I listen to music?
The first thing we are talking about today is Mark's book, yeah, Overtone Singing. So actually, if you realize it with your ears what are the overtones, what is the color of sound, is very important to listen with your attention, not necessarily to a melody line or like a beats, but to the coloration of music, how each instrument is presenting, what kind of sound is the most central in that particular instrument, and how they are combined together. This is the way you can listen separate. Let's say if it's complicated music with different sounds, try to separate each sound in your head and follow the line, and then try to listen to them all together at once. And this is like looking at with your eyes very far away and very close, and on the edge of your ability to see, same as with ears.
Yeah, it's a good question, Sunny, and I consider this my first book on listening, and I have another book almost. It's ready in my mind. A lot of things are written, and that's actually going. There will be many short things about how can you really listen, because I understood quite late that a lot of people don't hear what I'm hearing, and that you think like I play this music so we hear the same thing, and that's not at all true. We all listen in so many different ways. We should learn more from each other, from how we listen, and the Tuvans are kind of the first stop, kind of to learn how to listen to timbre and to all kinds of subtle things. But of course, there are many other interesting listening traditions. But the book that I have in mind will not talk so much about music, but about also listening in everyday life. So, yeah, use all your senses, but in particularly listening to pick up all kinds of details. And definitely, that Tuva was for me a big boost in that respect, and overtone singing as a whole. It has so many channels, like you say, Maxime. There's so many things you need to figure out that are going on at the same time. Yeah.
Well, I can give you also two tips, which are practical. One thing, as you said, listening to surrounding sounds, but you need to close your eyes. And inside your house, outside, go to a place, close your eyes, let yourself relax, and try to listen all sounds which are at that moment, distant sounds, close sounds, moving sounds, static sounds, and imagine through what you hear, imagine what's going on. This is a very, for me, it works. It's nice. I also give it to people who ask me this kind of oefening training. And another one, listen to recordings of water.
Yeah.
The natural water recordings, especially smaller rivers, springs, and stuff like this. Listen to them in good quality in headphones, and try to listen to every drop, every little sound, deeper, finer, higher sound. Try to distinguish them. They are not. Firstly, you will think they are not musical, but then you will hear the music and that. And it's good because it has no relation to any human associations. So the water will only pull out pure emotions from you and pure information when you listen attentively. For me, this worked greatly. I did a lot of recordings in Tuva and smaller rivers and stuff like that, and I listened to them like, but long. You don't have to listen to them just for 1 minute. You need to listen at least for half an hour. This kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, yeah, you did your job recording in Tuva, as we see here. I remember the last event you organized in Amsterdam. You were simply just playing for half an hour amidst all kinds of music. You were actually playing half an hour of music of water recording, and
Water recordings.
And that was different recordings, and that was kind of groundbreaking for me. I thought, like, okay,
Oh, thank you.
you just keep on playing that. Why not? Of course, here a lot of people have water streaming at their home. There's a lot of people here in Taiwan, a lot of Chinese people who
Yes,
are
it's a
very aware
tradition.
of this
Yes.
this thing, and who love the sound of water
Yes.
and the flow of water, and who understand this concept completely. So in that sense, it's definitely not something that only Tuvans do. It's
But
happening. In other places.
it's just to say that it's not on the background only. It's good, but it's good for a relaxation of your background, listening to water. But really attentively listen to different kinds of water flows, natural, not from your ground. But yeah, there are many good recordings on YouTube nowadays, high quality and stuff like that.
Yeah, even
I would
YouTube. Okay, yeah.
I would advise that instead of, I don't know, sitting on your phone doing nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Last question, Maxime. You just mentioned you guys started improvising from a simple skeleton. That was you were talking about the raga there.
Yep.
Is that skeleton related to any tonal thing? I think it is. Huh?
It
Could
is.
it be something outside of musical notes? That's the raga kind of thing. Raga mala, it's called. I think that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a set. It's a set of modes. And it's like it's very similar to Maqam Arabic system scale. Which on one hand very strict and demands a lot of learning and a lot of repetition. On the other hand, offers a possibility to improvise on this. So it's both. It's a limitation and freedom together. This is what we learned with the Ragamala project.
Yeah, if you listen to this music, which you can find online, and if you read the book, you will find that there are many people in overtone singing who studied Indian music, raga music. I did it myself. I'm still doing that. David Hikes, Timothy Hill, who we had another presentation with recently, and that is somehow. I think you could say that for people like us, Tuva is kind of on a similar level as India, as this kind of very rich source from which so many things spring.
Absolutely.
that you can spend a lifetime researching and learning and practicing.
I'm pretty sure that actually Indian music is the source of music for the whole Eurasian continent. So all music you find in Eurasia, you can find in India in that or other form.
You can even find throat singing there, but if you want to
Sure.
know about that, you got to read the book.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, I think that was a really interesting journey with you, Maxime, down memory
Thank you,
lane
Mark.
and to some things that we did not share, but we should meet again here or there or
Sure,
in
Mark.
Siberia.
Sure, we continue, and good luck with your book. That you got get a lot of readers, and this knowledge will be transferred further.
We do our best, and you do your best, and you got things up your sleeve too to write. I heard in Russian so far. But we hope to hear more from you. And thanks everybody for watching, whether it's now live or later. This will stay online. And thanks for Jane in the backstage. And yeah, come and check us out at some occasion, live or on YouTube or in the book.
Of course,
wherever.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
We keep connected. We stay connected.
Thanks everybody, and thanks Maxime, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.